Good morning and welcome. This program is called the Veterans Forum. We're coming to you from the studios here at Derry Community Television in Derry, New Hampshire. Today is the 18th of November, 2013. As is usually the case, we have another guy who did his thing, and I'm going to bring him on in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to give you a quick breakdown as to what the program is, what it's all about, and how you guys and gals out there who served anywhere in any of the wars, any of services, may have the opportunity to have your history recorded. We're working in cooperation with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Now, this has been in action since the year 2000, and we have been asking veterans, guys and gals, as I said, who served anywhere in any of the wars, starting right now, the earliest one we have alive people is back as far as World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and whatever else we have. If you can and will, come and share that experience with us here in a taped interview. The information will be fed back down to the Library of Congress for inclusion in their database so that people coming after us and your own friends and family, if they're so inclined, can help answer that question. Hey, Grandpa, what did you do in the war? Well, it's a chance to unload. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working with several POWs. And what I've been told, it's been one of the best legacies that they as a collective group, by their own thinking, have been able to say it's a good legacy because they've been able to unload a lot of stuff that they had been carrying for years up here. And it was a great sigh of relief. We ask if you will, please come and join us. Joe is another young fellow here. I'll introduce him, and then we'll take the show from there. Young fella, you're on, and if you will, tell us your full name, spell your last name for the record, date of service, and the branch of service, and where you now live.
My name is Joseph Manning. The spelling is M-A-N-N-I-N-G on the last name. I was a veteran of World War II from 44, June of 44, on through to July of 46.
And your branch?
And the branch was, went in as a recruit in the Navy and was transferred from the regular fleet type positions to the Naval Construction Battalions, known affectionately as the Seabees.
Good. Where do you live?
Oh, I currently live in the town of Rindge, New Hampshire. I lived in Boston, a place called Rosendale, when I went into the service in 44.
Oh. We're going to talk about that. I come from Milton, so I think we might know each. You sounded somewhat familiar. Okay, now that we have who you are today, I'd like to go back and see how you developed. For example, tell us where and when were you born? What was your life like in your early childhood? Any brothers or sisters? Any members of the family in the service? And how was it growing up during the Depression years?
Well, I was born in Boston in 1926. I was the youngest of 3 children. I had 2 older sisters. One was 12 years older, the other 6 years older. We lived, our dad was a Boston fireman. So we were very fortunate during the Depression that at least we had a paycheck coming in on a regular basis.
Amen.
Amen is right. So we had it, compared to some of my neighbors and the kids I went to school with, boy, when I think back, we had it pretty doggone good compared to them. Let's see, my sisters, I had the middle child, my sister Elizabeth was also in the Navy. She joined the Waves back in 1942. She was a graduate of Forsyth Dental School, which made her a dental hygienist. And she spent a good deal part of the war at the Naval Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. Her claim to fame there was that at one point in time she cleaned Eleanor Roosevelt's teeth.
Yay.
Yay. That was a big job of those of you that remember Eleanor Roosevelt's teeth.
Did you save any of the scrapings?
No,
for
I don't think she
souvenirs?
saved any of the scrapings. But let's see,
Anybody
what was the next?
Any of your other relatives, uncles, friends, brothers?
No, as far as the war was concerned, the only nearest relative I had was in the service was my uncle Mike, and he was a veteran of France in 1918. Unfortunately, he was affected by, he was on an ambulance duty, and I think that he would have what you call today post-traumatic syndrome, and he spent much of his life in the Bedford Veterans Hospital there in Massachusetts after the war.
Well, how was it growing up? What did you do to keep busy and making schoolwork and after-school
Well,
games and activities like that?
Well, it was a typical childhood, I guess. We had a neighborhood of mixed ethnicities. So there was Italians, there was German, there were French, and in Boston, needless to say, a good deal of Irish, like myself. And our childhood was pretty much the usual thing. We seldom in trouble with the police, so we would have got whacked good from both. You're in school, you get whacked at school, you get whacked at home. Interesting thing about our neighborhood, there were 3 people named Joe, 3 kids. Joe Welch, Joe Sapella, and Joe Manning. And Joe Welch was Big Joe. He was about 12 years older than I was. Little Joe was Joe Sapella. He was 6 years older than I was. And I was Baby Joe. The reason I bring that up, Joe Sapella was the first one to go in World War II. He died at Pearl. He was in the Army, he was killed at Pearl. So the war came early to our neighborhood and left a big impression on all of us. Yep.
Okay. Well, how was school? Were you a
Oh,
bright
well.
kid in sports and anything like that?
Well, I was always a skinny runt, so I never, I never did much good in sports. Although typical of suburban Boston, we had skates on about time we could walk. For a little guy, I was a typical little guy. I was small, but I was wiry.
Okay.
And I did play high school hockey. Mostly it was all on ponds in those days. But that was about the end of my athletic career.
Okay. Now, how did you do in school? Were you a good student?
Well, I was.
You give some clues to where you wanted to go.
In grade school, I wasn't too much with it, but somehow or other, I went to school in Roxbury, in a school called Mission High School. It was run by Xavier Brothers, and they were pretty tough cookies. And I kind of towed the line there and did fairly well in high school. So I think that was a good foundation for what occurred to me later on in life.
Okay. It seems to have a way of building whether you recognize it or not.
Yeah, it's true.
And sometimes they're to your assets and sometimes to your detriment. But it's what makes you you and everybody else the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when did the big day come? You decided to go into the Navy? Were you drafted?
Well, of course,
How'd you get there?
everybody was champing at the bit to get in the service back in high school. It was a completely different atmosphere in terms of military service. It was something strongly to be desired, and many classmates, kids my age, left high school before they finished in order to get in the war before. Well, it was still there. Everybody wanted to be part of it. I actually went in February of my senior year in high school and signed into the Navy at that time, and they said, "Okay, kid, you're in, but you're not going to be in until you graduate."
Okay, what's that? You graduated at age 18.
Yep, that's right. I graduated at 18. My birthday was in June, and I graduated in June, became 18. So at the end of June, off we went to boot camp.
Which was where and how did you get there?
Which was, well, first of all, boot camp was in Sampson, New York, which was sort of the camp for the entire Northeast. It was, by the way, I went back to Sampson about a month ago, and there's a museum there. And I asked, well, how many guys went through this thing during the war in the Navy, and I was surprised to learn it was almost 500,000 people went through boots at Sampson. We went, as I recall, my father came with me down to South Station in Boston to see me off.
Was that where you got sworn in? Fargo Building or the post office?
You know, I don't remember.
Oh,
I don't remember.
that's way back anyway.
Yeah,
you got it.
I don't know where it was under, but I know my father's advice to me as I was getting on the train was not keep your head down or any such thing. He said, don't come back with a tattoo.
Oh,
So,
well,
so I never did get tattooed. But in any event, we were by train out to Sampson, and we had a rather long boot camp. Boot at those days, usually you get it through in about 4 weeks. We were there some 8 weeks plus, and we finally figured out the reason for it. This is in June of '44. And of course, the entire Atlantic fleet was tied up with the Normandy invasion. So there weren't any ships available for any of us that were getting out of boots and wanting to go into
active duty.
active duty. And as far as the Pacific was concerned, a thing that was kind of overlooked at the time, and you read it was a back page item, we had invaded Saipan in the Mariana Islands. And this was, in effect, the D-Day of the Pacific War. The Marianas were Japanese territories, except for Guam. The Mariana Islands were under Japanese rule since 1913 at that point in time. And the people on the islands had been trained and schooled in Japanese culture. So we, in the invasion of Saipan, our forces weren't quite sure what the native population was going to be, whether they would be receptive or they would be against the troops as they landed. As it turned out, they were quite receptive to have us come and save them. But that's a whole other story for later
we'll
on.
get there.
Yeah.
Now, when did you leave Boot and where'd you go?
Well, we finally get out of Boots early in September, and I was found that I was assigned with a number of my friends to go to Camp Parks out in California near Stockton and Sacramento area. It turned out to be a base for the assembly of the Seabees, the Naval Construction Battalions. And I was did some training out there, rather limited, but they formed up our new outfit, the 1067th Naval Construction Battalion Detachment. That's a big, long name. And it was turned out to be a rather unique type of CB outfit in that we weren't particularly concerned with construction. But what we were concerned with was the equipment that is used in construction. And we were formed as a company, as a detachment, I should say, to repair, restore, and rehab construction equipment that was damaged, abandoned in some places, all through the Pacific. The Navy decided it would be easier sometimes to get a repaired and restored piece of equipment than it would to wait for the equipment to come from the States. And a lot of stuff, all it needed is a little bit of attention, and it was as good as new.
Well, where was that located? Where'd you go to get there?
Well, from Camp Parks, we went to Port Hueneme. Hueneme was the big CB base on the East Coast, much as Quonset was on the West Coast, as Quonset was here on the East Coast. And while there, we were mostly spent our time doing military training. That is, we did infantry type training. We were all issued carbines and were trained in various aspects of defense and offense in a military sense. I ended up being, in my tender age, a mortar captain because I was the only one that could figure out the trigonometry in the group.
The only one safe over the pencil.
Right, yeah. And
Do you ever shoot when?
well, I shot it. We
Dummy
shot.
rounds?
No, you know, we did a fair amount of heavy training, rifles and everything else. But fortunately, I never shot anyone in anger,
Good.
and which was great. And you know, in those days, in the military, for every guy that was on the front line shooting, had at least a dozen people
In back
in
supporting
back
it.
of them, whether they had mundane jobs like taking care of the mail or
Huh? But it all had to be done.
it all had to be done. You couldn't do it. You had to have, in effect, the quartermaster type thing. You had to get supplies. You had to get everything needed to support the fellow with the gun. And of course, the CBs basically were, okay, build airstrips and hospitals and barracks and all that sort of stuff, which is all supportive. But the CBs themselves, in many of the engagements in the Pacific, were in to repair an airfield, and you were on the heels of the Marines in front of you. So a lot of outfits did see a good deal of military action. Fortunately for me, God bless, the stars aligned so that I didn't.
Yeah, but everybody's not Audie Murphy.
No, exactly.
You had a job
Exactly.
to do, and that's the important thing,
Exactly.
and you did it.
And if this support work that we did helped shorten the war, then all the better.
Give us a rundown, because we got a pretty good-sized book there, but just verbally walk us through, what was your base of operations, and where were you stationed?
Okay, well, we took a slow boat to China. That is to say, we sailed out of Hueneme over to Pearl, spent a few days there waiting for an additional convoy, and then sailed off and ended up in a place called Eniwetok in the middle of the Pacific, about 2,000 miles.
Nowhere.
Nowhere from Pearl Harbor, and about 2,000 miles from mainland Asia. We ended up spending a month in the lagoon waiting for a convoy, not waiting for the convoy, but waiting for the protection of destroyers and destroyer escorts that followed a convoy, the escorts. And it just didn't come. Didn't come, and we later found out that the entire Pacific Fleet was up at Iwo Jima. Anything that could shoot a pea shooter was up there shooting. So we were tied up until such times as the fleet could break away from the fight at Iwo Jima. We ended up then in Leyte Gulf in the middle of the Philippines. I think of the area very much these days. This is being taped a few days after the tremendous storm has gone into the middle of the Philippines, and particularly struck a town called Tacloban in the island of Leyte, and there are thousands of people killed and tens of thousands of millions, actually. I think it's actually millions that are homeless as a result of this.
You're talking about the island right now, as of today's real time, not way back when.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
You gotta
Right.
get
Yeah.
that
Right. Yeah. That's
squared
right.
away.
Yeah. That's why I say I remember where we were because of it's all headline news these days. We landed in the island of Samar, which is at the gate of Leyte Gulf, at the opening of Leyte Gulf, and there we built a factory in the jungle.
Really?
We built a factory in the jungle where trucks and bulldozers and cranes and weapons carriers and ambulances and any kind of motorized vehicle that was damaged, blown up, went underwater, or abandoned. A lot of equipment was abandoned in our island hop in the early part of the war as we moved up from Guadalcanal and started taking islands going north. When you finished one island and captured it, a lot of the equipment, they just left it on the island to get on the boat and go up to the next island. There was no way of taking stuff with them. A lot of that stuff, perfectly good, but just needed a little bit of fixing up. Anything that did need fix up would come to what we had a truck factory, a bulldozer factory in the middle of the jungle, and we would repair these things, get them in running shape, and then they'd be shipped off to wherever they were needed, rather than starting with brand new stuff from the States, which was hard to come by.
How'd the stuff get to you? Did they have some sort of a special fleet that went to the different islands?
Well,
to bring it in?
you know they must have, but I really don't know. But,
I've often wondered about
as soon
that.
as we got, a thing built, we had a big, enormous parking lot. All of a sudden, overnight, it was full of trucks and jeeps and everything else, and then the next night, more of them would be in. But next week, more would be in, and eventually, we'd have to expand the parking area, and then pick and choose what we could put together and repair in a hurry, and take the tougher jobs and have them wait, but get as much out as we could as quick as we could.
Good.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I ended up my job was to put on new brakes on 6x trucks, the rear ends. I was a rear end specialist.
Oh, proctologist. I'm sorry.
I was a part of the Keister crew, shall we
Yeah,
say?
Keister crew, yeah, not Keystone.
Yeah. And what did you do in the war, Daddy? I adjusted brakes.
Okay. But if you hadn't, it'd be a lot more coming back to
They'd
be
be coming
fixed.
back without the brakes. Exactly. So we were there through the end of the war in Europe, the death of our president, and eventually the dropping of the Hiroshima bomb, and the surrender. And that was a memorable day.
Oh, yeah.
It was a memorable day, I'll tell you.
Right after the bomb was dropped, if you will, or what they call it, hostilities ceased, did they keep you in the same, or did you break up? Because they started breaking our groups up all over the place.
That's true. That's true. For those unfamiliar with it,
The point
when
guys.
when the war ended, you had, I don't know how many millions of people. There's actually 16 million people in uniform from the United States during that war. And many of them, most of them were overseas in Europe or in the Pacific. Now, the war ends today. You can't cramp 16 million guys on a bus, on a boat and send them home. It's just
Do I have enough
impossible.
boats?
It took 4 years for us to get all spread all over the world, and we weren't going to pick us all up in a short time. So they had a selection of who got out and discharged first, which was a system. They measured how many points you had, and the points were granted by how long you were in, if you had family at home, if you had kids at home, if you had been wounded, or it depended on your history. Those of us that were still kind of wet behind the ears, as here I am, at that point in time, a 20-year-old kid. They're not sending me home right away because there was a lot of married men, and they went first. Seabees particularly had a lot of older men because they were looking for men with trades and fellows that wanted to get into the service and wanted to join the effort. They were maybe 40 years old. They weren't going to take them in the infantry. But the Seabees were happy to get them if they knew how to run a bulldozer or run pavement for a road or any kind of construction work, were good carpenters or whatever. So we had a lot of older fellas. When the war ended, and the first bunch of from our outfit went home, most of those guys had served in World War I. They were retreads, as we call them. They were probably born around the 1900. So in 1918, they were 18 years old. They were in the Army. In 1944, they're 44-year-old men, and they joined us. And it was one of big advantage for myself, a young kid, that I went in and I could learn a useful trade from men who had been doing it all their lives. So it's Seabees, if anybody wants to go in the service, that's the outfit to go in, because you get you may learn how to strip down a rifle, but you'll learn a trade as well.
Yeah.
Useful, much more useful in civilian life.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue some of the M1 sticking to your gut.
Yeah.
After that, what happened?
Well, the war ended, and eventually our outfit, we didn't have to, there wasn't any great need for repaired trucks anymore. They broke the outfit up, sent the older fellows home. The rest of us were redistributed to other Seabee outfits to help with the necessities of the end of the war, to the Army of Occupations. And in my instances, happily, I was assigned, first of all, to an outfit that was going up to repair 30th Battalion, I should say, 30th Battalion. And we're no sooner in it than we're on a boat again, and they shipped us off to North China. We were sent up, we're going to Peking, it's now called Beijing, to repair the Japanese airfield up there so that the Chinese could use it again. So in the middle of November, we've been sitting in the jungle for a year. Middle of November, we were in November weather in North China, which I'll tell you can be pretty cold and raw. We sent a party up, first an advance party up along with the outfit we were assigned with. We were with the 13th Marine Amphibian Battalion or Division, I'm not sure what, to clean up the barracks at the airfield, so the rest of us could go up and do what work that needed to be done.
How are you received by the people? Were you kind of on eggshells at all? The Marines there are outside you, but how are you getting into the town and doing your work?
Well, in that instance, we never did get up to the airfield because our advance party was up there, and it was it turned out that Mr. Mao and his company decided they didn't want us there. And there was either a skirmish or a threat of a skirmish, and somebody somewhere made the decision, well, look, we're not going to get into the middle of the Civil War in China. The whole idea of us going and repairing the airfield was scrapped. And before we know it, we were on a boat sailing away again and went down to the Mariana Islands. And our 30th Battalion, when we got there, again was broken up. There was didn't have much need for it there, and the fellows that had the points went home, and the fellows that didn't, still accumulating enough points to go home, were shipped off to other places. I ended up being shipped up to the island of Saipan in the Marianas, and our job was to help reconstruct the infrastructure of the island. The island had been terribly a small place, only about 45 square miles, but it had been pulverized. Hardly a tree was left standing in the thing. And the natives there were really glad to see us. And we did sort of routine work on roads and all. I had a job of on a barge, and we helped repairing an old seaplane ramp that the Japanese had built back in the 30s. But it works like that now. As far as the people, when we were in the Philippines, of course, we were in with English-speaking people. They were very receptive to us. We visited their fishing villages whenever we had a day off, which was rare. And occasionally went to town during some sort of a festivities that they may have been having. So the Philippine people were very cordial to us all, and despite some history in Philippine-American relations, which wasn't the best. But when we got to Saipan, we had little or no contact with the local people. They were all shipped off to and held in a detaining camp because they had been living under the Japanese culture since 1913. And that is, the authorities weren't quite sure just how friendly or how cooperative they would be. So for a number of years, they were held in a detention camp, and eventually it turned out to be quite happy to have the Americans there. They are now a very interesting place to visit. They have an island now that, as I say, when it was there, there wasn't a stone on a stone, and now it looks like Cancun. It's become the summer or the vacation place.
High-rise motels?
Oh, yeah. Everyone you
Wow.
could think of, the Hyatt and the Hilton and all of the rest of them, all there. And the biggest draw why they are there, the biggest source of business for them is the Japanese.
They come down for vacation.
They have come down, and now that is their Cancun, and they've come there because their father or their grandfather used to live there at one point.
Or worked there, or a prisoner there.
Yeah, the Japanese owned that island from 1913 on, and had turned it into the biggest sugar plantation in Asia. They confiscated all the land, but the place was, all during the 30s when everything else was bad around the world, Saipan was a busy place in sugar manufacturing. So they had, the Japanese had that as there was some on that small island, now only around 40 square miles. They had some 20,000 Japanese people living on it, and only something like 3,000 or 4,000 natives. They had, in effect, taken over that island. So when we invaded Saipan in 1944, we were invading what was practically their homeland. It was the first place we went into with a sizable Japanese population, and it was defended fiercely. So there.
Oh, good deal.
Yep.
Now where?
Now where? Well,
You're back.
eventually got home, yeah. And the best thing that ever happened to me, and probably one of the best things that ever happened to the country, was the GI Bill.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. I landed with that. I fortunately, I was going to go into automotive repair. And then I heard about that, and I said, well, wait a minute, let's try something else. So I thought, well, maybe I can become an automotive engineer if I can go to school. So in any event, thanks to the GI Bill, I went to Mass State College at Amherst, which eventually became UMass, and I got a degree in engineering. It wasn't in automotive, it was in mechanical engineering, which all kind of harks back to my experience in the war.
It feeds, one feeds the other.
Oh, yeah. So,
Now,
should I tell you I went back to Saipan? Did I tell you?
I was going to ask about that because we've got a couple. Let's do this. I'm going to ask Sean if he can is to show up on that medal that's right there, and when it comes there. Now, tell us about that. That is most interesting.
Well,
How you came by it.
I came by it this way. First of all, back in about 1970 or so, a young girl showed up in our town in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, brought there as a war bride, and she came from the Marianas. It turned out that when she got there, they were going to get married there, but the fellow's mother wasn't too pleased with this slightly dark-skinned island beauty. And the poor girl was stuck in Jaffrey.
So he bombed
Didn't
out.
have, he cashed out. She's stuck there, doesn't have fare to get home. And about a dozen families, us young couples were all in our 30s or 40s. We sort of adopted her, and she was a student, by the way, at University of Guam at the time. She hadn't finished school, but in any event, she didn't have money to go home. We ended up finding her a place to live. She got a job in one of the local plants in town, and she was with us a little over a year, finally earned enough money to go home. When she got home, she finished her education, and at that time, the islands were under the sort of a protectorate of the United Nations and looking over U.S. Control of the island. In any event, she got into the local politics and was very active in politics. She was assigned to be a clerk, if you will, for one of the representatives of the island that was a token representative to our Congress, and she did very well for herself. She came back and visited our town when she was stationed in Washington and brought all of us out to supper, all those families that cared for her, and as a thank you for taking care of her as a young girl. Later on, she came back a second time married to a fellow, and she's farther up in the political and economic ladder. She took us all out again. I met the husband, and in our conversation, I happened to mention that I had spent some time there. And he said, "Oh, you've got to come back to the island and see it. You've got to come back. You come back, and we'll put you up." Well, make a long story short, in a couple of years, I did go back, and for 3 weeks, I was their guest. Had a car to use all around the island. I had a maid that would be cooking me breakfast and washing my clothes, and I was treated royally. And I met a number of people in the island. By the way, the island now it's incredible. It was hardly a stone upon a stone, as I said before. It was devastated during the war. Now it was the Cancun of Asia. It had tremendous hotels and what have you. And I was introduced to the mayor and the head of the local legislature, and feted at all kinds of dinner parties. And I was at a Rotary meeting in the morning when I talked to someone and happened to mention why I was there and how I was there. They said, "Well, did you get the medal?" And I said, "Oh, what medal?" Well, the medal was one that they had struck on the 50th anniversary of the 1994 was 50th anniversary of the invasion of their island and their liberation. And they've looked at it now, and their liberation, and it was in gratitude to all the people all the military that had been on their island that helped in liberating it and helped in rebuilding it. So I was given this medal as in gratitude from the people of the Northern Marianas. By the way, just while you talk about the Northern Mariana Islands, it may surprise a lot of people to know that they are a commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands and are on the same footing as the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. They are part of the United States. Back in the late 70s, I think, this was the people of the islands automatically became citizens of the United States, and they are quite proud of all of that. So I was quite pleased for the honor and the great time that I had there for 3 weeks. And I'd like to go back again someday. But I haven't got too many days left. You know?
No, you need somebody to carry your luggage.
Yeah,
I'll give you my
Okay.
card, as they say. No. Have
Well,
you ever
that's nice.
joined any outfits like the Legion or the VFW?
Well, let's see, and then the DAV and the VFW, and the VFW is, and to be honest with you, I haven't been active. And it's only in later years, you know, when you first got home, you didn't want anything to do with
With anything, yeah.
any of it, you know, and it wasn't until later on in life, I think I've been in the VFW now, I'm a life member, been in that for about 10 years. So.
Well, you said DAV. Were you wounded overseas?
No, I wasn't, but I did have I have, if you notice, a couple of hearing aids here. I have
A couple like a...
yeah, hello?
Huh?
Back during the building of our camps there, I was assigned to the carpentry division and the millworking thing, and typical know-it-all kid. I didn't stick cotton in my ears like the seniors did. And when you ever been in a milling operation with planers and
high-speed DVs.
routers, and man, that scream is incredible. It almost hurts your ears to do it, but I was invincible. We're all invincible at that age, you know. Nothing's going to happen to me.
Face, you didn't know any different.
No. Talking about being invincible, let me part one thing about it. As a kid, I went off. It was a big lark. It was the biggest adventure of my life, still has been, to go off and cross the Pacific and go to China and all that sort of stuff. But my going was, I never gave a second thought to it. But the people that were giving second thoughts to it were my parents. When I see nowadays fellows and their kids are off to Afghanistan and everywhere else, I then realized how much my parents must have worried, must have been sleepless nights.
Oh, yeah.
about their only son, and didn't know where the heck I was,
Or what he was doing.
or what I was doing, but I was out there somewhere. And they, to me, they're my heroes. They're my heroes of World War II.
Oh, yeah.
The parents, all parents, not just mine, but all parents that went through. Yes, there were, by the time that war ended, there were a lot of gold stars hanging in our neighborhood, you know, including my friend Joe Sapella that lost it.
The thing that a lot of the guys have told me, and I'm not sharing something that's secret, but there's been a difference in the mental attitude of World War I versus Korea versus Nam and some of the other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That we were all united. Everybody was going the same way. We're all
everybody
pulling
was
the same direction.
Absolutely.
But over time, there's been factions beat it up, and I know the guys in Korea and Nam, they were dumped on, pure and simple.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
that's true.
we're still trying to figure a way of making them honestly feel, hey, guys, come home, you're welcome.
Hey.
But it's a hill that nobody can climb.
Amen, amen.
Now, you said you took advantage of GI Bill. Have you tried to not enlist or recruit, but based upon the experiences you had, all in all, was this experience beneficial, positive, or negative, if you want to put it that way, as far as your life?
As far as I was concerned, it's positive. It's still, again, you got to realize how you think when you're 18, 19 years old, and how you think when you're
Oh, hell yeah. You can't help but
78
get smart.
years old, as I damn near are. It was a great experience and a very positive thing for me. I'm proud of it. You know, I didn't get into any kind of a shooting war, but I felt that I did what I could do. And
You had the job to do.
and I didn't have much choice, you know, say, hey, you are going to ping. And I ended up by somebody pulling my name out and say, all right, you're going to be in the Seabees and not in a minesweeper or armed guard or some of the...
Well, we've had that discussion. Fellas in the Air Force, whatever they did,
Yeah.
would be here looking up, or looking down rather, at some guy in a submarine.
Yeah.
The guy in the submarine's looking up. What dummy would jump out of a good plane and the guy up there say, what idiot wants to be locked up in a tin can? But it depends upon where you are in life along the scale, what you can do, and more important,
And
it gives you a chance to think, I think.
And what cards were dealt you.
Yeah.
Deal the best you can with the cards that are dealt. Yeah.
Talking about being dealt, I'd like to, if we can, Sean's going to bring up a couple of these photographs. Would you explain when he gets them on the screen as to what they are and
Okay, well.
way back when? There you go.
Okay, well, this is taken on Samar in the Philippines. I think it probably, it was the summer of '45. No, I don't know whether that was before or after the end of the war.
That's
But
you in
this
the middle,
is that's me in the middle, and this is a couple of kids in the small town of Ganang, which is on the very end of Samar. It's a small village, had a cathedral built there that, wow, was enormous. It was something like early 1700s. This enormous cathedral was built.
Oh, the missionaries had built it way
Yeah,
back
right.
when.
Yeah, but the village itself is pretty much as it shows in that picture. There's palm covered roofs, palm leaf roofs, and rather flimsy-looking construction. And this town would have been the first one that's got whacked in this recent
Hurricane,
cyclone, whatever they call it over there, typhoon. And I'm sure that village is absolutely leveled. We've seen pictures of Tacloban, which is a pretty big-sized city now. It's incredible how strong that storm was.
What's the other photograph?
The other photograph is back in our, back in our company area in the Philippines. Those are the tents that we lived in after we got out of the pup tents. We had to live in pup tents for a number of weeks while we built everything else. And just a couple of guys in the background I used to hang out with. And where the dogs come from, and you can't see in this photograph, it isn't clear enough. But we're just off the beach. The hut behind us, and then that was the beach and the coral reef, and it was San Francisco was
Okay.
4,000 years and 4,000 miles and 4 years to go. Which, by the way, while we were still there, just before the end of the war, in the Philippines, no one had any idea of this atomic bomb stuff. And we were at the point where the military were planning the invasion of Japan, which they thought would take many, many years. If we ever got there and if we ever survived, it would take many years before the end of the war. The motto was, it's the Golden Gate in '48.
Well, yeah.
And then the bomb dropped. And I owe one big God bless you to Harry Truman
Amen.
for that.
Amen.
Because I may not have made it then. That would have been a whole nother ball of wax up there.
Now,
Yeah.
here's something we have a picture, but I'd like you, Sean, can you bring up that citation, please? We're playing hide and go seek.
Oh, okay.
Got it
The one
sideways.
from the Saipan and Northern Islands Municipal Council.
The date and what it
Yeah.
represents.
Oh, the date would have been, here we are, the 26th day of, oh, there we are. We got it on sideways, but that's all right. This is a citation that I got while I was there at the municipal council in the main town on Saipan, and it was greetings from the greetings to the governor of New Hampshire, because I brought John Lynch at the time. I brought a citation from Governor Lynch to the Islanders to say hello, congratulations on what was, I guess, about the 30th anniversary of their becoming part of the United States. And this was a thank you thing back to the governor and to all of those veterans of World War II that had helped invade and liberate. So what I'm trying to say, liberate the island and make it what it is today. So without that help, they would have still been living in grass huts there too. So that's what that was. It was by the various and sundry politicians of the island.
Now, were you a quote a legal representative of New Hampshire, or just
Well,
a
yeah, well, I had
civilian
been.
happened to be a courier?
I was a kind of a courier, but I was sort of a bit of a legal representative of New Hampshire, because for 12 years I had served in the New Hampshire legislature, and so I knew which people to talk to get citations to congratulate these people, which they were very pleased to receive.
Very good.
Particularly my hostess, who, as I say, lived with families in Jaffrey for a year when times are hard, and it was she was very happy to have citations and to give citations.
Amen.
Yeah, it was.
Now, talking about citations and happy living, obviously, during all this stuff, you had a chance to be married or got married.
Oh, God, yeah, good.
Yeah, how about
yeah. Oh, yeah.
a little bit of the family life? Because if
very
we don't,
quickly.
the girls who watch this thing are going to shoot us both.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to talk about.
When I fell in love with a dear red-headed Irish girl from Dorchester, Mass. Then I was still in college, and we married shortly after my graduation. We moved to New Hampshire to start a business, which was quite successful, and our marriage resulted in 6 children, all who have been doing very well, and now they're in their 60s and 50s.
Yeah, that's kind of scary, isn't
It does.
The old Goats Club.
Yeah, yeah.
What are they doing? You want to share quickly? But
Well, let me see.
not being nosy.
They had become, let me see, Top Dog Joanne just retired from teaching high school. Next daughter down, Catherine, is a librarian at Keene State College, and she has given me a few grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Jim is a oceanographer down in Woods Hole.
Oh, good.
Happier than heck at Klamath High Tide down there with a parcel of kids. And next order down is a teacher in Vermont, grade school teacher up there, Gina, and daughter Mary, unfortunately, is passed away. Had cancer at a relatively young age. And my last surprise package, Bridget, is a phys ed teacher in Hillsborough.
Well,
Yeah. They're all doing very well.
very good to hear.
Yeah.
Very good to hear.
Well,
Any words of wisdom you'd like to pass on to the guys and gals about the show or what you'd like to see done?
well, service for your country is a rewarding thing. It's a pain in the neck sometimes when you're getting it, and you have some hard times with it. But it is a rewarding thing. You have done, however small your part, something for your country. And that in itself is your reward, and that you've done something, you'll feel good about having done it, even no matter it might be difficult. Service now is a whole lot different than nowadays in that we're in another world, this world of electronics and the change of things, and
Cell phone, you're on the battlefront.
oh, good, right, yeah. It's something, but it's a great country. Do your part to keep it great.
Amen. 2 words. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure.
This
Thank
has
you.
been fun. We thank you for
Appreciate
your
it.
service.
Okay.
Hey, you've still got a good
I
hand.
still got a grip, even with the arthritis.
Yeah,
I got a grip.
you got to get that fixed there. I guess that's a wrap, folks.
Okay.
Again, it's one guy's story of what he did, whatever his part was, and that's what we're asking each and every one of you. For example, taking some of the numbers that we talked about earlier, when I first started this program, we had some sort of a broadside of database, if you will, wherein it was estimated back in the World War II time, there were some 16 million guys and gals working, doing their thing throughout the world. About 2 years ago, I got an update, for whatever reason, and it was very, what's the word, scary, in that then they said, as of that time, they estimate there were about 2.5 to maybe 3 million guys and gals left of that big crew. And then on the bottom of the little release was also note, we estimate that they're dying at the rate of 1,200 to 1,500 a day. When I read that, I'll clue you, I checked, I checked my pulse and told my kids, and they said, okay, well, it's a game. Basically, I think we're fighting the clock and the calendar. The bottom line simply is this: if you have a story to tell, but you do not tell it, nobody else will, and we collectively will lose a lot of that history that must be remembered. I've been told that some of our enemies have been carefully over the years expunging their history books so that things like Bataan, Auschwitz, the Holocaust never happened at somebody's radical thinking. Those memories can never be replaced. They should never be erased, and they should never be forgotten. So please, if you can and will, get a hold of me. The address will be in the back of the program here, and I will do anything and everything within my power to make sure that you have a fair shake and that what you say will be properly recorded forever. I thank you. Stay healthy. Goodbye.